Every gilded cage is built with walls of comfort. The only question is what you're paying for them.
Let's start with the big question. What if everything you've ever known, every single person you've met, every star in the sky, every thought that's ever popped into your head, was all just one part of a single conscious being? Well, today we're diving into a philosophy that says, yep, that's exactly how it is.
I mean, really think about that for a second. Not that we're like one being or that we should try to act as one, but that we and everything else literally are one. That every single experience, every bit of happiness and every bit of pain is just the universe getting to know itself through your eyes. And that is the giant mind-bending idea at the heart of what we're talking about today.
And the source material itself says it better than I ever could. You are everything, every being. You are unity. This is the central idea behind a philosophy called the Law of One. But to really get it, you need to hear where this information came from, because the origin story is, well, it's pretty out there.
So yeah, the philosophy of the Law of One comes from a series of books known as the raw material. And trust me, how these books came to be is a fascinating story all on its own.
Okay, so the story kicks off back in the 60s. You've got this researcher, Don Elkins, who teams up with Carla Rueckert. They create an organization called L/L Research to seriously investigate things like paranormal contact. And in 1981, they got it. Big time. During a session, Carla, who was in a deep trance, started channeling a consciousness that identified itself as Ra. This kicked off a 3-year marathon of over 100 recorded sessions where they just asked this entity everything.
So who or what was this Ra? Well, it called itself a social memory complex. The easiest way to think about that is like a group soul, a massive collective consciousness made up of millions of individual beings, all blended into one unified entity from, let's say, a higher level of reality. And get this, Ra claimed this wasn't its first time talking to people on Earth. It said it had actually shown up and interacted with the ancient Egyptians about 11,000 years ago.
So what Ra described wasn't just a philosophy, it was a whole roadmap for consciousness. It laid out this entire framework for how souls evolve, and it's all structured around 7 distinct levels, which it called densities. Now, it's really important to get what density means here. It's not a physical place you could fly to in a spaceship. Think of it more like grades in school. You know, you start in first grade, you learn your lessons, and you graduate to second grade. Each density is just a different level of consciousness, with its own unique curriculum and its own lessons to master before you can move on up.
And here's a quick look at how it works. It all begins with first density, which is the basic awareness of the elements. You know, earth, air, fire, water. Then consciousness evolves into second density, which is growth. Think plants and animals. And then there's us. We are currently in the third density, the first level where true self-awareness kicks in. And according to Ra, our entire purpose for being here is to make one single fundamental choice. That choice sets our path for what comes next. The fourth density of love, the fifth of wisdom, and eventually the sixth density of unity, which, by the way, is where Ra says it's from.
So let's zoom in on our level, right here, right now, in the third density. What is this huge, all-important choice that we're all apparently here to make?
Well, the idea is that everything in our lives, every challenge, every relationship, all the good stuff and all the tough stuff, is all happening to help us make this one choice. It's not really about being good or bad, it's about consciously choosing the direction your soul is going to evolve.
And that choice is between 2 polarities. On one hand, you have service to others. This is the path of unity, of compassion, of looking at another person and truly seeing yourself. On the other hand, you've got service to self. This is the path of separation. It's about seeing other people as separate from you, as tools to be controlled or manipulated for your own power.
So where does all this lead? At the end of a very long cycle of experience, Ross says something called a harvest happens. Now, this isn't some scary judgment day. It's really just graduation. If your soul has become polarized enough toward either helping others or helping yourself, you graduate to the fourth density to keep learning on whichever path you've chosen.
Okay, so that's the grand cosmic picture. But what does it mean for us, day to day? How do you actually navigate all this? Well, the Law of One makes it very clear that the real work isn't about grand gestures out in the world. It's about the work you do on your inner self.
This quote from Ra really nails it. True service isn't just about ticking boxes of good deeds. It's about your inner state of being while you're doing things. The real work is to connect with that feeling of universal love inside of you first, and then let your actions just naturally flow from that place.
So, how do we do that? Ra suggests a few pretty powerful tools. Meditation is a huge one. It's about quieting all that mental chatter so you can finally hear that inner voice. Then there's self-knowledge, which means taking a really honest look in the mirror at all parts of yourself, the compassion and the impatience, the love and the anger, and just understanding them without judgment. And that leads to the final piece, self-acceptance, loving and forgiving the whole package, flaws and all, because it's all part of the one creator.
But just when you feel like you're starting to get this cosmic map figured out, Ra leaves us with this final, humbling little thought. It's a reminder that maybe, just maybe, true understanding doesn't come from our brains at all. Perhaps the deepest truths aren't something to be analyzed, but something to be felt, experienced in a place that our logical minds just can't quite reach.